That's unreasonable.
Yeah.
I'm going the wrong way. No. This way. This is the wrong way. The Roche Brothers parking lot. Great. Orange juice?
Sure, yeah.
You want anything for dinner tonight? We could drive up to Sudbury. They will. Something in.
Yeah, I can order something in.
Okay. I'll get you, some just in case. starting to rain again
Yeah.
in a major way. If you'd like the seltzer.
Thank you.
Things. I didn't go. You're not camping.
Yeah.
You're familiar with the neighborhood. What's it telling us? 195, so.
Head west toward Richardson Drive. In 50 feet, turn right onto Chestnut Street. Take the next right onto Chestnut Street, then turn left onto Chestnut Street.
Okay.
Onto Junction Street. In 1,000 feet, turn left onto Warren Street. Turn left onto Warren Street.
Alright, folks, I stopped last. Alright, I'm going.
In 600 feet, turn left onto Webster Street.
They're just gonna have us pick up 128 over there.
Take the next left onto Webster Street. Continue on Webster Street for 1.5 miles.
Oh, so I don't know how you're paying for food. Like if you do like you have a DoorDash or something like that.
Yeah.
And do you have a credit card on that?
Yeah.
That's mine.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the more recent one? I mean, the one that works or the one that doesn't?
I think it works.
Okay. I was gonna give you a little cash for food.
Okay.
To last you for a little while. Would it bother you if you turn the news on? Would it bother you?
It's fine.
Keep moving.
lost.
Cologne or Munich went on the streets to protest against the country's immigration policy. And I quote, he said, "Hordes of Arabs would beat up their children in school the next day." But here in Eastern Germany, there's still few enough people with migrant roots that we can keep them out if only we create a sufficiently hostile atmosphere.
There are a lot of layers to Susanna Feldman's story. One of which is that her mom, Diana Feldman, is herself a Jewish immigrant from Moldova, and her father was a Kurd who grew up in Turkey. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So one of the really fascinating pieces of the story is that this family is itself a representation of Germany's multi-ethnic future. The murdered girl's mother said, look, I didn't have a problem with her going and hanging out at this shelter for refugees because she'd been friends with family for a while.
Take the next left onto Manning Street.
Make friends with kids who are from somewhere else, and I wasn't really very political. But she has been radicalized as a result of this experience. And so when you look at her Facebook page today, it very clearly blames Angela Merkel for the death of her child. She calls for very restrictive immigration policies, and she sympathizes with the far right.
How about for you? How has reporting this story changed?
Made me very worried the strength of the far right in the country. I did not expect the people who want to exploit crimes like this one to be so sophisticated and so effective at what they do. I also was a little taken aback by some of the complacency from the local authorities. So when you look at this murder case, the suspected murderer had committed a string of other crimes, and nothing had ever really happened to him. And so I think one of the ways to respond to this phenomenon is to make sure that the authorities do their job in order to give a bulk of German citizens who are not xenophobic the confidence they need that they're going to be safe.
What is the status of this?
In 600 feet, turn left onto Holland Street.
He has been charged, and his trial is going to take place in the coming weeks.
I'm curious as Germany wrestles.
Take the next left onto Holland Street, then turn right onto Webster Street.
To what extent does German history, does World War II hang over this?
It's very strong. So at one point I was at a different protest in the southwest of Germany, and the lady holding the speech there said, look, the German mainstream wants us to feel guilty.
In 300 feet, turn right onto Brookline Street. Turn right onto Brookline Street.
I really want to turn right onto Brookline Street.
We shouldn't allow them to use this against us. So the debate between the part of Germany
We're going to
which
go back
takes
to
the
Webster,
lessons
lady.
of World War II seriously and thinks that it has to be at the root of what it means to be German today, and the people who angrily reject this reading of
Take the next right onto Webster Street.
Yosha Monk is an associate professor at Johns Hopkins University and author of The Letter from Germany in this week's New Yorker. Yosha Monk.
Thank you so much.
Continue on Webster Street for 3/4 of a mile.
Premiering tonight on Comedy Central offers a unique look at how fame happens these days. As Gary Glenn Weldon says, the other two mixes over-the-top satire with a surprisingly warm, intimate sense of humor.
Wow.
In the first episode, 13-year-old Chase watches something overnight sensation off of a cloying, sweet homemade video he posts to YouTube.
I think I'm crazy, but I was thinking maybe I wouldn't marry you with braces.
But the other two isn't about Chase, really. It's about his two older siblings, Brooke and Carrie, the other two, get it? Played by Helena York and Drew Tarver. They're a couple of self-obsessed 20-somethings struggling to make work, city, and wait, stop, come back. I know that setup sounds familiar, but the other two keeps making choices that defy your expectations, especially if one of the things you're expecting is the caustic tone so many sitcoms default to. You just feel for these two characters right away. Carrie is waiting tables while trying to make it as an actor.
Hi, I'm Carrie Dubek, and I'm reading for the role of Man at Party Who Smells Fart.
His sister Brooke doesn't even know what she loves, and over dinner with her mom, she's maybe a little defensive about that.
We might not be the hot new twink or whatever, but all three of your kids are hot, equally successful role models.
In 1,000 feet, turn right onto Highland Avenue.
1982 and after.
Individually, Brooke and Carrie can be a lot, but in their many scenes together, York and Tarver find an easy, unforced chemistry marked by mutual affection and a shared sense of humor.
Take the second right onto Highland Avenue.
Brothers' fame and start to lose themselves in it. And while the satire about the nature of viral internet success and showbiz hominess can be broad, the actual jokes...
Continue on Highland Avenue for half a mile.
Already calling him the next big white kid.
Co-creators Chris Kelly and Sarah Schneider, former head writers of Saturday Night Live, have a knowing grip on the thing they're making fun of, and an intimate sense of these characters. Kelly and Schneider are a gay man and a straight woman writing about a gay man and a straight woman, and the show's particularly smart about how it treats Carrie's gayness, showing the tiny, everyday negotiations queer people have to make. Like the way Carrie's boss at the restaurant keeps pulling his gay waiters aside to update them on just how woke he is.
I wanted you both to know. Last night, at my home, my wife and I watched Brokeback Mountain.
Brooke and Carrie grow and change through the show's 10-episode season, which sets it apart from other sitcoms that keep their characters static. The other two know that watching flawed characters trying to become better people inspires them to have laughter because it...
In 1,000 feet, use the right lane to take the I-95 North, Massachusetts 128 North ramp to Peabody, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Use the right lane to take the I-95 North ramp.
And from Indeed, used by over 3 million businesses for hiring, where employers can post jobs and use screener questions to build their short list of preferred candidates.
In a quarter mile, keep left at the fork to continue toward I-95 North, Massachusetts 128 North.
Committed to business being a force for meaningful change for graduate and undergraduate degrees, mission-driven curriculum, and a hands-on approach. More at cogod.american.edu. And Zoom. Zoom offers cloud video conferencing, online meetings, and a video conference room solution in one platform, featuring digital video and audio with screen sharing. Account registration and more at zoom.us.
Those crazy winds should die down tonight. Rain should move on, leaving clear skies, lows.
Keep left at the fork.
Clouds and sunshine, chances of snow showers, highs in the upper 30s. Sunny to cold Saturday in the upper 20s tops, and then Sunday partly sunny back in the 30s and near 40 degrees. 55 degrees still in Boston at 1:26.
We're funded by you, our listeners, and by Vertex. Fueled by the needs of patients, families, and healthcare providers, Vertex invests in science to strike at the core of serious disease. VRTX.com.
Continue on I-95 North for half a mile.
From Boston University, you're listening to 90.9 WBUR FM Boston. One of Boston's largest radio...
So you are going on to Route 9.
Yeah.
In a quarter mile, take exit 20A for Route 9 toward Brookline East.
WBUR, Boston's NPR News. In rural Louisiana, federal prison employees are so broke after weeks without pay they can't afford to fill the gas tank.
Walgreens called me 5 times to come get my prescriptions and stuff. I can't. I live 45 minutes away from Walgreens.
Coming up, the government shutdown is affecting one small town. This is WBUR's All Things Considered. I'm Lisa Muller.
Take exit 20A, then merge onto Massachusetts 9 East.
President Trump continues to press for money for a border wall, and Democrats say they won't negotiate until he reopens the government. One day after an opposition leader declared himself Venezuela's leader, the president remains in power with the full support of the military, but not the support of Washington. And tonight, on Marketplace, magazine publisher Condé Nast will be putting all its titles behind paywalls next year. What does this mean for the publishing giant in the age of social media? It's now 6:01. News headlines are next.
Live from NPR News in Washington.
Continue on Massachusetts 9 East for 3 miles.
Deal on border security must include a large down payment for a southern border wall.
We have to have a wall in this country. We have criminals pouring into our country. And I'm not talking about the southern border. They don't stay there. They permeate all throughout the country, including places like Wisconsin and a lot of different places. And that's the problem.
The president spoke from the White House shortly after the Senate rejected 2 competing bills that would have reopened the government. NPR's Susan Davis reports.
The Senate
Senate
rejected President
is
Trump's proposal requesting
Republican.
$5.7 billion for a border wall in exchange for temporary changes to immigration laws. Senators also rejected a Democratic proposal to reopen the government for 2 weeks in order to try and negotiate a border security deal. The next steps are unclear. House Democrats led by Speaker Pelosi are working on a proposal to outline all of the border security priorities Congress is willing to fund. It is not expected to include money to build new physical barriers along the U.S.-Mexico border. Meanwhile, federal workers will miss their second paycheck on Friday. Susan Davis, NPR News, the Capitol.
Senate leaders Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer are meeting on Capitol Hill at this hour in an attempt to reach an agreement to end the partial government shutdown. Just a short time ago, President Trump suggested he would support whatever they came up with. The shutdown has stretched into its 34th day, with hundreds of thousands of government employees set to miss their second paycheck tomorrow. Alex Salmond, the former political leader of Scotland, has been charged with attempted rape and sexual assault. As NPR's Frank Langford reports from London, Salmond insists he's innocent.
Salmond, a major figure in British politics, faces 2 charges of attempted rape, 9 of sexual assault, and 2 indecent assault. He made no plea during a hearing and was released on bail. Police began investigating Salmond after the Scottish government looked into complaints of sexual harassment. But this month, the government admitted it had mishandled that investigation and created the appearance of bias against Salmond. Salmond became First Minister of Scotland in 2007, but stepped down in 2014 after the failed Scottish independence referendum. Frank Langford, NPR News, London.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro the closure of its embassy and all consulates in the United States. The move comes a day after he broke off diplomatic relations in response to U.S. recognition of an opposition leader as interim president. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo today reiterated that position. On Wall Street, the Dow was down 22 points. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
This is 90.9 WBU, Lisa Mullins. The whipping wind and heavy rains from today's storm are expected to wind the hour. It's been a pretty slow go on many roads thanks to the wet conditions. Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency spokesman Chris Bessie has this advice for those who are behind the wheels.
It can be a little bit challenging to drive in extreme high winds, so we really encourage people to make sure they're paying attention to what they're doing, look out for objects and debris in the road, keep both hands on the wheel.
Flights continue to be delayed and canceled at Logan Airport. Arriving flights are running up to 2.5 hours behind schedule. The Massachusetts Steamship Authority has canceled ferry service between the Cape and Islands, and 19,000 power outages are says he hopes to have a plan ready by next week to extend those of workers going without pay during the federal government shutdown. The governor says they're working on trying to figure out how to get the workers on the state's unemployment system. Massachusetts Congressman Stephen Lynch is the new chair of the National Security Subcommittee. The subcommittee has oversight on national security, homeland security, foreign operations, as well as immigration, defense, and veterans affairs. Lynch says he plans to restart congressional oversight of the president's national defense strategy that he calls ill-defined. There's legislation on Beacon Hill to let cities and towns lower the voting age to 16 for local elections. Supporters say it's a necessary component to the state's new civics education law. Cambridge and Lowell have looked into dropping the voting age in the past, but failed to get home rule petitions approved by lawmakers. In the forecast, look for rain to move out and winds to die down roughly around 7 o'clock, an hour or so. Overnight tonight, temperatures going to the 20s. Tomorrow, partly sunny, maybe a few snow flurries around, up near 40 degrees. And for Saturday, back down to the 20s with sunny skies. Sunday, partly sunny, well into the 30s. 54 degrees now in Boston.
We're funded by you, our listeners, and by Brookline Bank's Signature Business Bank. Comprehensive banking services for businesses and their owners. Learn more about Signature Business Banking at brooklinebank.com. And K-Bucks Fund, in support of the David Gilkey and Zabiula Kamana Memorial Fund, established to strengthen NPR's commitment to training and protecting journalists in high-risk environments.
This is All Things Considered from
And I'm Audie Cornish.
Today is the 34th day of the longest government shutdown in history, and on Capitol Hill, the Senate took their very first vote on bills to reopen the government.
That's right. One bill backed
Sorry.
by President Trump would have reopened the government in exchange for $5.7 billion for a border wall. The other bill, backed by Democrats, would have opened the government for a short time to keep talking about the border. Now, both of these bills failed, but taking the step of voting seemed to shake up negotiations that have been stalled for weeks.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer went immediately into a meeting to discuss an alternative path forward, one that could reopen the government and give lawmakers a few more weeks to work out the details. There's congressional reporter Kelsey Snell joins us now from Capitol Hill. And Kelsey, can you give us a sense of whether this new development is a sign of real progress?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell at this point because things came together really quickly after those two votes failed. A group of about 18 senators from both parties, almost evenly split, went to the Senate floor and they started talking about a plan for a 3-week spending bill to reopen the government just to let the talks continue. And South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham was one of them. He said he'd already brought the idea to President Trump, and Graham said Congress needs to agree to give Trump clear parameters for talking about border security and spending. Here's what he said.
You're not giving President Trump a bunch of money to do anything he wants to with. He's got to spend it on a plan.
We found a faster route via Chestnut Hill Avenue, Dean Road and Beacon Street, which saves 3 minutes. If you prefer to stay on the current route, tap no thanks.
250 more border patrol agents on the border would be good for us all.
How are leaders responding to this idea?
Well, as he said, McConnell and Schumer went and had a meeting about it right after the votes. And they talked about the possibilities, and by the time it was over, Schumer came out and he was smiling. He told all his reporters that they were continuing to talk. But it's really hard to tell right now how far those talks will go, in part because the president followed up by saying he needs a down payment on the wall before he can agree, and that's something we know Democrats have rejected so far.
The impression has been that the Senate has been completely taking a back seat in these talks, but now it seems clearly the Majority Leader is engaged. Do we know what sparked this uptick in talks?
People on the Hill are getting incredibly irritated. They want a deal, and every time they hear from constituents or they turn on the television, there's a new story about the impact of this shutdown on people who are voting for them and people who are hurting. Ohio Republican Bob Portman told many of his reporters that this shouldn't be so hard and that there's actually a deal to be had.
Shutdowns are always stupid. This is a particularly stupid one because the underlying problem is one we can't resolve. We're not that far gone. This is not healthcare.
He also said this isn't abortion. This isn't a kind of social issue that divides the two parties. It is a conversation about border security, which in the abstract is something that both parties agree on. And that's kind of been the feeling from both parties.
Are House Democrats sharing that same frustration?
Yeah, they have passed several bills that all send the same message that they want to reopen the government first and then talk about border security later. And they passed another one this week. They're getting really annoyed with the White House, too, because essentially they're calling the White House callous. They're really upset about some comments in particular that were made today by Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. He was talking on CNBC and seemed to downplay the seriousness of the impact of the shutdown on workers. Here's what he said.
I don't really quite understand why, because the obligations that they would undertake, say a borrowing from a bank or a credit union, are in effect federally guaranteed. So the 30 days of pay that some people will be out, there's no real reason why they shouldn't be able to get a loan against it.
We've been focused on the Senate, but House Democrats, are they offering anything new in terms of these negotiations?
Yeah, behind the scenes, Speaker Nancy Pelosi is working on a new proposal that would detail all of the border security spending they would be willing to do once the government reopens. Right, once the government reopens. And what I'm told is that all of together, the money they're talking about proposing could meet or exceed the president's demand for $5.7 billion for a border wall. It just wouldn't be spent on the border wall. It would be spent on other types of border security, which Democrats say they're gladly would support.
That's NPR's Kelsey Snell. Kelsey, thank you.
Thank you.
For government workers who aren't getting paid, the shutdown feels more dire every week, every day. Savings dry